after a couple corners, if I'm Jet Lawrence, I feel like I'm going to be out.
Plessinger fourth, Anderson fifth, Hampshire, Patrill.
Supercross gets all the credit. Stadium lights blazing, riders launching 40 feet through the air inside packed arenas, 40,000 fans screaming on every landing. The jumps are nearly vertical, the tracks are impossibly tight, and one bad input at speed sends you straight into a tough block. You've only ever watched the highlights. The case for Supercross being the harder discipline basically builds itself. And honestly, that case isn't wrong. Supercross is one of the most technically demanding disciplines in motorsport. The guys who've raced both at a high level don't really argue about it though, they just smile. There's something the highlight reel doesn't show, and it starts the moment the stadium lights go dark and the series moves outside. The most concrete separation between these two disciplines is how long these riders actually race. In Supercross, the 450 main event runs 20 minutes plus one lap. That's the whole show. One race, one shot, and because the clock runs short, riders can operate almost entirely on explosive anaerobic output, the kind powered by fast twitch muscle fibers and raw aggression. The body never fully drains its primary reserves because the race ends before it gets there. A rider with a modest aerobic base but elite short burst precision can get through 22 minutes on sheer horsepower and never be exposed for the gap in their endurance. The format protects them. Motocross doesn't offer that shelter. A standard outdoor moto runs 30 minutes plus 2 laps, which lands around 35 to 40 minutes of actual race time. And the rider doesn't race once, they race twice. 2 full motos in a single afternoon, with the overall winner determined by combined points from both. Stack those up and an outdoor athlete is operating at maximum physical output for over 70 minutes on race day, compared to roughly 22 minutes for a Supercross race. That math changes what's being asked of the human body. Past the 20-minute mark, explosiveness stops being enough.
This track is going to get
Losing too much ground either, and Justin Cooper is there sixth.
because there's more traction.
The question is whether the rider built the base to keep functioning when that happens. The Supercross to motocross transition each year is famously brutal, and part of what makes it that way is how harsh the reality check is. 2 weekends separate the final round of a 17-race indoor season from the opening gate of the outdoor series. Riders who looked explosive and untouchable indoors suddenly have to manage twice the race time, brutal heat, and tracks that physically deteriorate every lap. Outdoors exposes whether a rider built the endurance base to survive that load, not just the speed to sprint through 20 minutes under stadium lights. The dual moto format also removes the tactical escape hatch that Supercross offers. Indoors, a rider who grabs the whole shot and manages a clean, defensive race can claim the win in under 22 minutes without ever having to push past their physical limits. The structure rewards early positioning more than sustained output. Motocross requires the performance to hold across 2 races. The first moto didn't just tire the rider, it left behind damage. Moto 2 starts with depleted energy reserves, an elevated core temperature, and lactic acid that still hasn't fully cleared from the muscles, meaning the second race effectively begins before the first one's finished.
He needed a whole shot, and the opposite for Eli Tomac, dead last off the gate, so it was going to be a long day for him.
Supercross tests how well a rider can sprint. Motocross tests how well they function after the sprint has already ended. This is where motocross really starts separating itself from Supercross. Once the racing starts, the track takes on a life of its own. A Supercross track is among the most carefully engineered surfaces in motorsport. Each round requires roughly 500 truckloads of specialized dirt, around 26 million pounds of material, hauled into a stadium and shaped by a crew of up to 100 people using 30 pieces of heavy machinery across more than 60 hours of construction work. Jump faces are built to a calculated specification. Rhythm sections are precisely spaced. The whoop sections are uniform in height and distance, designed to reward a specific rhythm. And between most races throughout the event day, equipment rolls back onto the floor to rebuild jump faces, smooth transitions, and restore the shape of the track that 20-plus riders just spent their race breaking down. The result is controlled deterioration. The track changes, ruts form, lines get defined, the surface packs in certain areas, but the fundamental shape holds. A triple jump at the opening of the night program is still recognizably a triple jump at the final checkered flag. A rhythm section that demands a specific memorized timing sequence stays consistent enough that a rider can plan for it. What riders learn in practice still mostly applies once the race starts. One consistent observation from Supercross riders, though, is that landing a jump 10 inches too far or too short can disrupt rhythm for an entire following section. Precision is that tight. But even as the track evolves, the core rhythm and structure of the course still hold together from lap to lap.
He got bumped around.
Motocross tracks get some maintenance throughout the day, mostly to manage safety in the fastest and most dangerous sections. But once the gate drops, the track largely belongs to the riders and the terrain. 40 riders on 220-pound bikes at speeds regularly exceeding 60 miles per hour generate forces that natural soil can't absorb cleanly. Deep ruts tear into corners, into jump faces, across straightaways, and as the 35-plus minutes of a moto grind forward, the track begins producing what riders call square-edged bumps. That is, vertical walls of compressed dirt that form organically within the base of the circuit, often buried under brake dust or hidden in shadow at the bottom of a hill. A rounded whoop in Supercross has a rhythm you can train for. A square-edged bump is a wall appearing at 40 miles an hour with no warning, and the impact sends a high-velocity shockwave directly through the dirt bike's chassis into the rider's wrists, shoulders, and spine. These form at different locations across different sections on every single lap. One of the most direct ways people who analyze both disciplines describe the difference as this. In Supercross, the track is static. In motocross, the track is continuously morphing. The smooth, fast outside rut that was carrying speed on lap 3 may be a rubble heap of braking bumps by lap 7. The clean takeoff that worked flawlessly in practice could develop a violent kicker by lap 10 that tries to buck the rider over the bars. The track doesn't just wear down, it becomes hostile in ways that are impossible to predict or memorize. Every lap is a different track than the one before it. This deterioration doesn't just create a strategic problem, it creates a mechanical one, and the rider's own body absorbs the cost. Supercross suspension is built stiff. Riders are dropping from 35 feet in the air onto a compacted stadium floor, and the forks have to resist that impact without blowing through the stroke. Stiff, low-speed compression settings keep the bike flat and stable through tight bowl turns and aggressive throttle out of rhythm lanes. The setup is built around predictable, high-impact loads arriving at known intervals. Take that setup onto a motocross track and the machine becomes unrideable within minutes. The stiff internals deflect violently off every square-edged bump and acceleration chop, making the bike skip and deflect unpredictably across the surface while simultaneously destroying traction. So outdoor suspension gets tuned significantly softer, giving the stroke more travel and speed to absorb the relentless high-frequency chatter of degrading dirt at speed. The trade-off is immediate and physical. Softer outdoor suspension gives the bike the compliance it needs to absorb square-edged bumps, breaking chop at speed. But that same plushness also means the bike moves around more underneath the rider under hard braking, acceleration, and rough landings, forcing the rider's core and lower body to constantly stabilize the machine through changing conditions. And because those repeated impacts generate significant heat inside the suspension over the course of a long moto, the feel of the bike changes as the race goes on. What felt planted early in the race can feel harsher, less controlled, and more physically demanding by the closing laps. In Supercross, the bike helps control a lot of the impact. In motocross, the punishment keeps building until the rider's body starts taking over what the machine can't absorb anymore. But all of that is external pressure. What really separates motocross from Supercross is what starts happening inside the rider while all that punishment keeps building. Because eventually, the track, the heat, and the physical load all start piling on top of each other. And eventually, the rider's own body starts working against itself. Supercross runs January through early May. Races happen indoors in climate-controlled stadium domes or in open-air venues during cool spring evenings under floodlights. The body's cooling system operates without being challenged. Blood flows where it's needed, performance holds at its ceiling. Motocross is a summer series, late May through August, and races run at the peak of the afternoon under direct sunlight. Ambient temperatures at outdoor nationals regularly exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit, with suffocating humidity compounding the load. It's not a backdrop detail, it becomes an active part of the race, changing what the rider's body can actually handle. When a rider attacks a moto in that kind of environment, the cardiovascular system faces two competing demands it can't fully satisfy at the same time. The heart has to push oxygenated blood to the working muscles to sustain the output required to manage a deteriorating track at speed. It must also push blood toward the skin to prevent a rider's core temperature from climbing past the safe thresholds. These two priorities conflict directly. Blood going to the periphery is blood being taken away from the muscles, and performance suffers in both directions at once. High humidity closes off the primary escape valve. Sweat evaporation is how the body sheds heat in normal conditions, but when the surrounding air is already saturated with moisture, evaporation can't occur efficiently.
And he threw it away.
To me, if he has a chance to win this race, he needs to pass Jet like instantly.
Oh, he's right there. Oh, Jet!
The body responds by sweating harder in a mounting, futile attempt to compensate. This accelerates dehydration and makes the heart work even harder to keep the body functioning under the heat. And the longer the moto goes, the worse the cycle becomes. Data recorded from professional outdoor riders shows core body temperatures reaching 104 to 106 degrees by the end of a 35-minute summer moto. At that point, the body starts protecting itself. Reaction times slow down, coordination begins to fade at the edges, and all of it is happening while the rider is still managing a track that's been breaking down on a bike that keeps getting harder to control as the race goes on. The environment compounds the physical problem. As the heat builds and the moto stretches on, both the rider and the bike start feeling the strain. The suspension starts feeling different, traction changes, the track keeps getting rougher, and while the rider's already fighting dehydration, fatigue, and rising core temperature, the bike underneath them becomes more demanding to control with every lap. Supercross riders race in cool night conditions on tracks that stay relatively controlled. Outdoor riders spend the entire race trying to hold everything together while the track, heat, and their own body all keep getting worse at the same time. The physical demands of motocross are well documented, but what the sport does to the brain is just as brutal.
Jet's on the inside.
Jet's got the inside.
Gets it back.
Now we run that pace all day long, and that's what.
And it starts affecting the body before the rider even realizes it. Supercross riders can eventually settle into a rhythm. The lines evolve through the night, but the core structure of the track stays familiar enough that elite riders can almost operate on instinct once the race gets going. The brain stops solving new problems every corner and starts focusing on precision, timing, and execution. Jeremy McGrath, who won 7 Supercross championships, the most in the history of the sport, described his indoor approach as finding the smoothest and most efficient lines and hitting them with absolute consistency. The cognitive work is front-loaded into practice. Once competition begins, elite Supercross riders settle into a state of automated execution. Motocross removes that mechanism entirely. In motocross, the process never really happens. The track keeps changing, the lines keep evolving, and the rider's constantly forced to adapt in real time. What worked a few laps ago may already be gone. The brain never gets to settle into pure execution because it's still trying to solve new problems deep into the race. And eventually, that constant decision-making starts draining the body too. Reaction times slow down, mistakes start happening. The rider isn't just fighting fatigue in their muscles anymore. They're fighting mental fatigue from constantly processing new information at speed while the conditions keep evolving around them. In Supercross, riders spend most of the race executing a plan. In motocross, they're constantly rebuilding it while conditions keep evolving around them. As the body gets tired, the mistakes get bigger. A missed rut, a late reaction, one bad decision at speed. The brain never gets a chance to shut off, and eventually the body starts paying for it too. That's what this does to the brain. What it does to the heart is even worse. Studies on professional motocross riders have repeatedly shown heart rates sitting near maximum for almost an entire outdoor moto. Riders spend massive stretches of the race between 185 and 195 BPM with almost no real recovery time while still trying to control the bike through rough outdoor tracks. What makes motocross different is that the rider's heart never gets a real break. Every part of the body is working at once. Forearms fighting vibration in the bars, legs clamped to the bike, core constantly trying to stabilize the machine through deep ruts, and late in the motos, the effort keeps climbing. Riders know the feeling as arm pump, when the forearms tighten up so badly that even holding onto the bars starts becoming a fight. The body responds by driving the heart rate even higher, trying to keep the muscles functioning while the rider is still pushing at race pace. It's the heart rate of an endurance athlete mixed with the muscle fatigue of a full-body strength workout happening at the same time. Outdoor motocross also demands a different kind of strength than most people realize. Riders aren't just fighting fatigue, they're physically controlling a bike that's constantly trying to move underneath them for 2 full motos. Some studies have shown riders absorbing nearly 3 times the force of gravity through sections of an outdoor track. and that punishment keeps stacking up lap after lap. It's one of the reasons elite outdoor riders often carry more upper body strength and overall durability than the leaner, more precision-focused builds that tend to thrive indoors. Alden Baker, the trainer behind riders like Ricky Carmichael, Ryan Dungey, and Ryan Villopoto, has described preparing athletes for Supercross and Motocross as two completely different challenges. Supercross training leans toward explosive speed, precision, and short-duration intensity. Outdoor motocross demands something heavier and more durable: endurance, heat tolerance, recovery, and the ability to keep controlling the bike after the body is already exhausted. The riders wear the same gear and race the same machines, but physically, the two sports are asking for completely different athletes. Put all of it together, and motocross stops looking like a harder version of Supercross. It becomes something entirely different. The races are longer, the tracks keep getting worse, the heat builds, and eventually the body starts coming apart with it. Eventually, the riders who survive outdoors aren't just the fastest riders, they're the ones who can still keep riding after everything goes wrong. Supercross can conceal certain weaknesses. A rider with incredible speed and precision can still win indoors without ever being fully tested physically. A rider can manage the race, hit their marks, and stay comfortable inside a more controlled environment. Outdoors doesn't allow that. Motocross finds those gaps and grinds against them for over 70 minutes. The race distance exposes the endurance, the heat finds the hydration, and the thermal preparation. The deteriorating track finds the decision-making quality and the adaptability. There's no aspect of an athlete's preparation that doesn't get tested, and none that the outdoor season won't excuse. An outdoor national doesn't care about an indoor title. A 1-1 in the first round doesn't carry to the second. The points reset, the track breaks down the same way it always does, and the only thing that gets you through it is whether you actually built the engine for it. Supercross rewards precision. Motocross punishes anything less. If you've been sitting on a side in this debate, drop it in the comments. Supercross or motocross? Where do you stand? And make sure to check out the video on screen next. Thanks for watching, and stay wicked.